Our final Ginetta race of the weekend is the third of the weekend for the Ginetta Junior Championship race. 501 in the championship history. We celebrated the big 500 earlier on this morning, and it was another win for Rocco Coronel, his fourth win of the season from 5 races. The Red Bull-backed R Racing driver is proving almost impossible to beat this season, and will be looking to try and continue that winning streak into race number 2. He starts on pole position, so he's well placed to do exactly that, but he's had 2 really well-judged victories so far. In yesterday's race, he and Fred Green worked together, built a gap on the rest of the field, and then Rocco made his move with a lap and a bit to go. Never really looked back from there. In this morning's race, race 2 of the weekend, he had a bit more of a battle on his hands, though, with a slightly bigger group of cars debating the race lead, and we had a safety car as well partway through the race, which complicated matters a little bit more. He made a brilliant restart, though, after that safety car came out, and put himself in position then to claim another race win by only 0.4 of a second over Joseph Smith for Elite Motorsport, but it was R Racing who notched up another win, and they will be looking to try, as I said, to increase, that winning streak again in race number 2. Championship-wise then, Coronel leads, obviously, because he's won 4 races, and the other race, I think he was about 5th or 6th in the first race at Donington. It is Alfie Slater who's second in the championship, so Alfie Slater, who was, well, a little bit disappointed, I imagine, with 6th place earlier on today. He is 41 points back already. Alfie got himself a little bit involved with Torin Byrne and Scott Lindblom up at Village when Torin went off the road and lost control, clattered back onto the circuit into the side of Alfie Slater and Scott Lindblom's car. So that delayed Slater slightly, and he ended up only 6th place in this morning's race. Fred Green, yesterday's runner-up, also didn't have a good second race of the weekend. He non-finished that one as well. And so a few drivers looking to bounce back in this third and final race, which is just a few minutes away. The cars leave the grid on their green flag lap, as I said, led by Rocco Coronel once again. But I think I'm right in saying he hasn't actually started on pole position yet this weekend. He's always had some overtaking to do. And the others will know that even if they can shuffle him back in the pack at the start of this race, it doesn't guarantee that they'll be able to beat him in the race. So Coronel then in the Red Bull livery car. There in the background is his teammate Scott Lindblom. This is how they line up then. And Rocco Coronel has Joseph Smith for company on row 1 this time. Joseph's elite teammate Ethan Carney is third, ahead of George Proudfoot Nolder for MDD Racing. Colin Cronin and Alfie Slater are on the 3rd row of the grid together. Colin Cronin watching his brother Robert out in the Ginetta GT Championship. Jarrett Clark and Freddie Lloyd are on row 4. Freddie made some great progress up the order in race 2 and will want to do the same again in race 3. Scott Lindblom and Felix Livesey are next. Livesey's come from the back of the grid in both races so far. Didn't finish yesterday, but got into the top 10 earlier on this morning. Reeve Lake and Felipe Reich are on row 6. Noah Young and Josh Watts on the 7th row of the grid together. Then it is Spaniard Ralston Zarin and Harry Bartle, row 8. Row 9, Emilio Del Grosso, who was in the gravel in the race earlier on today. Henry Cameron for company on row 9. Row 10, Matthew Tuara, who's also been in the gravel today, has Katrina E completing the top 20. Then it's Max Cuthbert and Ethan Lennon. Fred Green, one to watch, definitely from the back of the field. Fred Green, runner-up yesterday, non-finisher this morning. That's why he's at the back. Josh Henry shares the 12th row with him. And Torin Byrne qualified on pole position. How a weekend can change. Torin started the weekend first on the grid and will now start the final race last on the grid with, I would imagine, a hastily repaired car. The Pace Performance team will have had some work to do after race 2 to get that car race ready for the 3rd and final encounter. So, Rocco Coronel then looking to try and complete the hat-trick. He's obviously had 4 wins in a row, but that's across 2 race meetings. He's not yet had a clean sweep of race wins. This is the onboard camera from Torin Byrne's car. I'll be honest, we haven't had much use out of this camera just yet this weekend, because Torin Byrne has really not been getting the results that he would have been hoping for. Of course, finished quite early in race number 2, and then yesterday's race also ended up off the road early doors, and then saw sort of fought back to a mid-pack finish. Harry Bartle carrying a onboard camera in the number 73. He starts from 16th on the grid. So a couple of onboards there deep in the order should give us some good footage of cars, well, drivers will hope anyway, digging their way up the running order somewhat. So out of the final corner they come. The safety car peels to the side of the road and lets the Ginetta G40 Juniors head past to the grid slots. It's the 401st race for the Ginetta G40. Nice little bit of synergy there with race 500 for the championship being the 400th that this G40 has been used for. And it seems a lifetime ago now that the G40 was brought in. I suppose it was really back in about 2011-ish, I think it was. It's proven to be a very popular car, but both versions, both the G20 and the G40, have produced the kind of racing that has made the Ginetta Junior Championship one of the favourite championships in the country. Not just junior championships, but just one of the fan favourite championships. There are quite a number of spectators who have stuck around here at Silverstone, I notice, just for this race at the end of the day. So hopefully we will put on a show for them. And will they see Rocco Coronel claim his first clean sweep of race wins over a weekend? Sure, there are some very hungry drivers behind him, keen to try and make sure that doesn't happen. There are quite a lot of elite motorsport cars inside that top half dozen. Will they be able to gang up against him, maybe, and claim a race win for themselves? The 5-second board is shown on the starting gantry. The lights go out very quickly, and that did not catch out Rocco Coronel. He launches off pole position, and I think will lead relatively uncontested into Copse Corner. Yes, he does. Joseph Smith slots into second position, and third place then for Ethan Carney. I think it's grid order through Copse. They then head down towards Maggots and Beckett's for the first time. And yep, already Joseph Smith latching on to Rocco Coronel. There's no point in trying to make a move into Beckett's. The move, if it comes on this opening lap, will probably be at the end of the Hanger Straight. Ethan Carney and George Proudfoot Nalder are next. Then it's Colin Cronin, then it's Alfie Slater. So the top 6 at least are in grid order. The first change, I think, is 7th, where Freddie Lloyd has got himself ahead of Jarrett Clark. We're on board here with Harry Bartle as he tries to make a move out of the slipstream down the back straight. You can't even see Joseph Smith, but I assure you he is still there behind race leader Rocco Coronel. He's got no intention of battling for the lead just yet. George Proudfoot Nalder, though, does have intentions of moving into the podium places. George slips to the inside of Ethan Carney there at Stowe Corner. George Proudfoot Nalder, looking for his first podium finish of the year, is into a podium position as they arrive at the club chicane. So they turn through the left, then through the right, side by side there as Lloyd is in danger of being shuffled out again. I think that's Felix Livesey alongside in his MDD car. So MDD running well in this race. They've got a car third. They've got Felix Livesey trying to break into the top 10. And we know that Livesey has got front-running pace. He's just not had the track position to show for it really this weekend. But might be able to do something about that in race number 3. Abbey. Side-by-side action further back, in fact 3 abreast. That is Emilio Del Grosso stuck in the middle. 95, I think the car to the outside was Noah Young. And they've all made it through Abbey in one piece. Bartle again with a grandstand view of that. Oh, sideways, that's Cronin trying to get up the inside. In fact, trying to defend from Alfie Slater. Slater's gone around the outside, they're 3 abreast, and again it's Lindblom. Oh, I do not believe the bad luck that this young Swedish driver has. There's absolute carnage at the loop, and this is going to require a safety car for sure. Cronin's pointing the wrong way. Reeve Lakes 83 has got damage. I think that's Josh Watts, and the number 7 is Felipe Reich, and that was all triggered by a little bit of a sort of bottleneck situation at Village. It stacked the field up, and then they found themselves 4 abreast, I think, into the loop, and I don't think the cars on the outside realised how many cars were on the inside of them. We'll see whether or not the drivers are able to get those cars moving. It's quite a long lap, of course, in Ginetta Juniors, 2.5 minutes or so, so they've got time to get out of the way before scrambling a safety car, but no, the safety car is out. You can see the pace has dropped, and that is not a huge surprise. Hopefully everyone's okay after that. There were some reasonably big hits in all of that. There is Josh Henry, number 40. The pace slows down. Well, that's a shame for Coronel and Smith. Joseph Smith had made a deliberate decision there, hadn't he, to work with Coronel, because we saw this happen yesterday when it was Fred Green leading and Rocco Coronel hunkered up behind him for the first 2/3 of the race. It is possible to break away from the cars behind when you do that. But that's all come to nothing now with the safety car bunching everyone together. Josh Watts, I can see, has made it back to the pit lane, but I think Cronin and Reevy Lake are stuck at the loop. So those two cars potentially are going to need recovering. Yes, there they are. Well, they're both out of the cars. The two Elite Motorsport teammates can discuss what just happened there. But really, it was sort of two separate incidents, really. Cronin had already spun, and then I think Reevy Lake just arrived on the scene with nowhere to go. Lucky, actually, that more of them didn't pile in, because when we see a replay of this, you'll see lots of other cars were coming in 2 and 3 abreast, as you would be on the first lap of the race. They were going at full speed through there. It might be the slowest corner on the track, but it's still pretty rapid. And luckily, they all managed to skirt around those stationary cars. So, Coronel leads at the end of lap 1 then. Joseph Smith second, George Proudfoot-Nalder third, Ethan Carney fourth, and Alfie Slater in 5th place. Livesey is now 6th, because he was sort of the next car behind that group. And this is what happened then. So the bottleneck's already kind of happened at Village. Lindblom gets to the inside of Cronin. Oh, and then Lloyd goes to the inside of Lindblom, and Felix Livesey was to the inside of Lloyd. And that taps Cronin into a spin, and there, Josh Watts, look, gets into Reevy Lake and sort of pinches Reevy in between his car and the stationary car of Cronin. This is the Emilio Del Grosso view, and look, there's going to be a car right in the middle of the road. Oh, really, really lucky to pick a way through that. This was Torin Byrne's view. Now, Torin was on the outside through the loop, and whoa, all of a sudden, car's stationary, and Torin must have been thinking, no, not again, not another accident. There it is, look, Livesey's on the inside of Lloyd, Lloyd's on the inside of Lindblom, Lindblom's on the inside of Cronin. 4 into 1 simply doesn't go. It's a wide circuit, Silverstone, but they were only using about half of it because they all wanted the inside line. Cronin got tapped into a spin. Lindblom, in fairness, at first I was sort of saying how unfortunate he'd been. He actually gets through this relatively unscathed. There's a touch there which taps Cronin's car back around. But I think Scott might be all right as long as that front bodywork's not become dislodged. Here comes the big crunch, though. Bang! Reevy Lake. Oh, that is a big hit. That's done a lot of damage to the front of Cronin's car. And to the right rear, you would imagine, of Reevy Lake's number 83. Yeah, you can see the toe of the right rear corner, the fluid sort of spraying from the front of Cronin's car. That's incredible, super slow motion footage. The drivers involved won't necessarily be in a hurry to watch that back, but that was really well caught by our camera operator up at the loop. And that might take a bit of cleaning up, because it's not just the cars that need moving, but it's the debris that needs sweeping away. It's the fluid that potentially might need mopping up as well. This could be a lengthy safety car period, this. 13 3/4 minutes to go. Had a brief safety car in race 2 earlier on. This, I think, is going to be a few laps, isn't it? Which is a shame. So through they come then. Ethan Carney, by the way, leading in the junior class. The junior class is simply the non-rookie class, basically. The top 3 drivers are all rookies in the Ginetta Junior Championship. But I mean, it's not unheard of for rookies to come into this series and immediately do well. But I can't remember the last time we had such a strong rookie contingent. I mean, the vast majority of the field are rookies. In fact, you can see on the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen, the black background in numbers, they're the juniors, they're the non-rookies. They make up 7 of the 25 cars. So incredible to see so many new names in the championship, and that's always exciting because you just don't know who the race winners and championship contenders are going to be. Normally, you'd say, well, those with a year or even a part season experience in the championship would have the edge, but it's just not been that way this year. A lot of attention, of course, has been given to Rocco Coronel and the great things that he's doing, but Fred Green is a rookie. He's 3rd in the championship. Joseph Smith, Freddie Lloyd and Scott Lindblom are all rookies. They're all inside the top 7 in the championship. They've all been podium contenders. And actually, some of the drivers in a second year, or who have raced before in the championship, the likes of Ethan Carney, for example, not having the rub of the green. Colin Cronin, another driver who we saw racing in the championship last year. And definitely things not going to plan for Colin, excuse me, this weekend. So Safety car leads them through. Both cars are now, I believe, out of the way at the loop. We'll get a proper look at it when the cars get back around to that part of the circuit, I'm sure, but I think the track is clear. It's just now a case of how much, if any, debris or fluid remains to be cleared. Safety car, I think, is leading them round deliberately at quite a low pace. Yep, there we go. Marshals dispersing back to Marshals point. So another huge thank you to the Marshals, who have been here all day, enjoying the sunshine and the great racing, yes, but they've had a lot of work to do. Throughout the Silverstone 500, there were a few safety car periods for incidents, all of which were dealt with as professionally and efficiently as always by the Marshals. And now in this race as well, they've had a couple of cars to clear up. They did after the earlier junior race too. So it's been a full, long day for the Marshals. We couldn't go racing without them. And I know probably sick of hearing us commentators banging on about this, but we really do appreciate everything the Marshals, and not just the Marshals, but the medics, the recovery crews, the officials who work up in race control and race admin on a voluntary basis as well. There are so many people who go into putting together a big race weekend like this, and most of them, 90% of them probably, you will never see or hear from if you're just here as a fan or watching along at home as a fan. And I know there's been a big push recently within the BRSCC, which is the organising club for the Ginetta Championships these days, for new blood to come and get involved in race control, race admin, scrutineering, all these sort of things. If you are interested in getting out there, getting to the racetrack and working in a role like that, there will be a role for you, I guarantee. Whoever you are, whatever your skill set is, we can use you. So head over to the BRSCC website if you're interested in getting involved and joining that impressive team who allow us to come and enjoy racing every weekend. Speaking of racing, we're about to get racing back underway here. We've just ticked into the second half of this third and final Ginetta Junior race of the weekend. It's Rocco Coronel, Joseph Smith and George Proudfoot-Nalder, the top three. George Proudfoot-Nalder looking, as I said, for that first podium, but might even have ideas of going for a race win. Be interesting to see how he handles this second half of the race, whether he goes for glory or just tries to net the third position. Rocco Coronel really stacking them up. He's going to go quite late this time, and really late, in fact. Still hasn't accelerated away as they come out of Luffield. Now he hits the loud pedal. Did that surprise Joseph Smith? Well, no, not really, in fairness. There's a Ginetta G40 length or so between them, but it's not an enormous gap, and the power of the slipstream round here will eradicate that advantage for Coronel pretty quickly. So I do think we're going to have them nose to tail again by the time they arrive at Copse Corner. They pitch it into the right-hander. There's no gap, really, until you get back to Ralston Zaran in 10th, who's a little bit adrift of Scott Lindblom. On board with Emilio Del Grosso, that is Zaran ahead of us, and Zaran started the race deep in the field, I seem to remember. Yes, 15th, and runs in 11th at the moment, so a few places gained for the Spaniard. Although now a place lost, look, because Del Grosso is to the inside and goes through. Zaran on the grass, and that opens the door maybe for Max Cuthbert. Yes, I think it did. Ethan Carney has shuffled George Proudfoot-Nalder off the road. The Aussie will not be pleased with that, and it could open the door for Alfie Slater. Slater's had a run on the pair of them, and yes, Slater goes third. Didn't see how that one started, but George Proudfoot-Nalder will not be happy. He finally, I think, has slotted in just ahead of the 55 of Jarrett Clark. Yes, he has. So that's about 7th place now, I think, for him. Freddie Lloyd's gone through, Scott Lindblom's going round the outside as well, so a disaster for George Proudfoot-Nalder. Forget going for a race win, it'll be a real fight now to get back into podium contention. The leading two, though, again, working to get away from that group, and in fairness, they're doing just that, aren't they? Because it's Slater now third. Well, Slater was 5th at the start of the lap. Oh, there's a spin there, and it's Torrin Byrne involved again. Torrin Byrne has tangled with, who was that, 95, was it? Yes, 95. Which is Noah Young, and well, another little moment for Torrin Byrne. Every race now this weekend has involved some sort of drama for the 18 car, which was fastest in qualifying yesterday by 7/10 of a second, which is unheard of in Ginetta Juniors. That pace is not going to deliver any meaningful results, it would seem. Back on board with Emilio Del Grosso here, trying to go around the outside of Cuthbert, and actually losing a place to the 51 machine. That was opportunistic stuff through the right-hander at Village. And gesticulation there. That was Fred Green, wasn't it? who gained the place. Fred Green started on pole for the race this morning, but was a non-finisher, so coming through from the back of the field. Side by side for fourth now, Ethan Carney and Felix Livesey. Felix Livesey started the day stone dead last on the grid for race 2. And of course, the race 3 grid positions are based upon the finishing places from race 2. So the fact that he started in the top 10 at all for this race shows how much progress he made this morning, and he's continuing that progress now. He's into the top 5. Felix Livesey could end the day with a podium. I think he'd be pretty happy with that. Freddie Lloyd behind him now as they head down towards Cops Corner. Freddie, in fairness, also had his lap times disallowed in qualifying. Started at the back. Livesey now having a go at Ethan Carney. He's got 4th place now. Felix Livesey is a man who will not be stopped. He levers Carney out wide. In fairness, that's what Carney did to George Proudfoot Nalder a lap ago. They're side by side down here. In fact, they're 3 wide. He's been freight trained as Livesey. George Proudfoot Nalder's on the inside and already gaining some places back. Livesey has to bail out of it. George Proudfoot Nalder was very keen there to get back ahead of Ethan Carney, and he did. And that puts him up another place. In fact, he's about to gain another one now because Freddie Lloyd has run wide. And, well, suddenly it's looking quite good again for George Proudfoot Nalder. He's alongside the Fox Motorsport driver. He's almost on the grass. Carney goes with him this time, gives him a shove, and it will be Freddie Lloyd who gets hung out to dry. Felix Livesey, though, is on the grass. He's trying to make it 3 wide. He squeezes to the inside of Carney, has a face full of George Proudfoot Nalder's car, and can't really go any further than that. Carney, who was making some really daring moves around the outside at Stowe Corner in the previous race, tries to do the same thing now to Nalder. Has that worked? Well, maybe, because he's got the inside line for the club chicane. Bit of banging of doors as they drop down the hill. And George Proudfoot Nalder, is he going to relinquish that position? We'll find out in a moment. This is Emilio Del Grosso's view. And a track full of Ginetta G40s. Fred Green in front. There are cars so far off the road that they're almost in the grandstands at Club Corner. But they've all managed to get it back onto the circuit down the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight. The 3 abreast again now. Nalder on the inside, Livesey on the outside, and it's Ethan Carney this time who gets shuffled out in the middle. The middle is not a good place to be, is it? Because you sort of get side drafted by both cars on either side of you. Side draft's quite powerful in these cars. It's where you position yourself right against the side of another car. The air that comes off the front of your car gets caught in their wheel wells and slows them down. More of an oval racing technique, really. This does look a bit NASCAR-y, doesn't it, really, as they turn into the loop. I thought we were going to get another big one there, but Freddie Lloyd is the only one that gets shuffled off the road, bounces back across the grass, loses a couple of positions, keeps his foot in. It's still on the grass as they come out of Aintree. There's just nowhere to go. There must be about 12 or 13 cars. You could throw a very small blanket over the lot of them, and in the middle of it is our camera car, Emilio Del Grosso. Road full of cars as we head into Brooklands. Somehow, George Proudfoot Nalder's back at the front of this group now. Ethan Carney behind. Felix Livesey trying to get back ahead of Scott Lindblom, which he has. And then you've got Max Cuthbert in the 34 car. There's Fred Green on the outside, number 51. So Green, I said, would be one to watch. Started the race in 23rd place. All through the gravel go, a couple of them, actually. What was that all about? That was Del Grosso, one of them. Was Fred Green the other? I think it might have been. Glanced away from the screen just for a moment, and suddenly there was a cloud of dust, and Emilio Del Grosso certainly has lost some time as a result of that. So, George Proudfoot Nalder's back to 4th place now. He's 5 and a bit seconds off the podium places, unfortunately. But he is back into the top 5. It's Coronel Smith and Slater, the leading group. Nothing happening there at the moment. They're all separated by about 8/10 of a second or so from each other. This is the fight for 4th position. George Proudfoot Nalder, Ethan Carney, Felix Livesey, Max Cuthbert. You've got the 55 of Jarrett Clark in there as well. Scott Lindblom, Freddie Lloyd, basically everybody else down to the back of the field, really. Look at them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of them, I think, in a line. There are the leaders. And there is everybody else. I would rather be one of the top 3 right now than anyone in your picture right now, because this has got disaster written all over it, hasn't it? Carney again to the outside of George Proudfoot Nalder at Stowe. Tried this a couple of laps ago. It didn't really work. He's off the track completely, bangs into the side of Proudfoot Nalder as he rejoins. George, thankfully gets away with that. Livesey now to the outside of Carney. To the inside goes Cuthbert. There's a squeeze, there's a pinch. They're all still there. Close your eyes. This is getting very, very dicey indeed. And finally, someone goes around. It's Del Grosso off the nose, I think, of Raul Zanzaran, that was. The elite driver gets fired out of the pack. It's great entertainment. I'm very glad I'm watching it, not taking part in it. George Proudfoot-Nalder, I think, has now escaped from this group in fourth, so it's now the fight for fifth, really, which has Felix Livesey at the front of it. But because they're running side by side everywhere, it's such a momentum category, this. They're not very powerful, these Ginetta G40s, and especially around a high-speed circuit like this, if you start going side by side, you kill your momentum, you give a double slipstream to the cars behind, and everyone is just going for every possible gap at the moment. It's sensational racing. Livesey squeezes around the outside of Lloyd, Lindblom to the inside of him. Lindblom could gain about 3 places out of all of this. He leaves aside Felix Livesey as they go down the Wellington Straight. Bit more door bashing there as Fred Green tried to find a way back onto the circuit. You're on board with Torin Byrne, who's thinking, why couldn't this just be a nice, clean, calm race? I just want to finish one. He's giving a bump draft to Fred Green down the straight. They turn into Brooklands Corner. I think they're still 3 wide. That's Ethan Carney, I reckon, to our left. Felix Livesey inventing his own line over the grass. He's going to bounce back into the road. Is he under control? Just about, I think. Torin Byrne leaves aside Ethan Carney. Got the 55 of Jarrett Clark on the outside, losing a place as well. And Torin Byrne has done quite well out of all of that. I reckon Torin's in the top 10 now, which is much more like it for the 18 car. Oh no, but the bodywork's coming loose. The bodywork is coming loose on the front of the 18. That little tap with Ethan Carney at Luffield has dislodged the bonnet, and that could prove to be a bit of a problem for him, a big problem for him potentially in the closing stages. We've had a change for second place, by the way. There it is, look, Alfie Slater has gone ahead of Joseph Smith. That I don't think is a bad thing for Joseph though, because Joseph was only capable of matching Rocco Coronel. He wasn't able to actually close in on the leader, but now if he works with Slater, 2 cars should be quicker than 1. He's giving Slater the bump draft. You can see Alfie waving at him saying, yes, yes, push me, push me, push me. I made the NASCAR analogy earlier on. There are a lot of similarities between super speedway racing in America and Ginetta Junior racing at Silverstone. We're turning right as well as left, and we're not racing on 33-degree banking, but apart from that, if you squint, it looks very, very similar. Rocco Coronel keeping the lead for now. Their 53 has been given a track limits penalty of 5 seconds, which is one of the cars further back in the pack, I think. Doesn't affect the race leaders. And as they head down, well, here is that pack turning into the club chicane. 53's Ethan Carney, isn't it? Yeah, well, he's been on the outside almost every time we've seen him. 32 there, Ethan Lennon runs wide and closes the door on Torin Byrne and Rouse and Zaram. Oops, and that's really dislodged the bodywork now. There was another tap there from Bartle for Torin Byrne. And I think Torin's going to have to think about pulling over here, isn't he? Because that's a lot of damage, and that bodywork, look, he can't see where he's going, surely, as they go through Abbey Corner. He's no idea where the other cars are or where the edge of the road is. Our camera position is about head height, maybe slightly higher, actually, so our view is probably better than his. And given how close to... Oh, that solved the problem. The bonnet fell off altogether. Never mind. Go fast enough and hit enough curbs, and eventually it'll come off completely. He's running wide now, though, into the loop. Torin Byrne has been in a world of pain this weekend. It's just not gone to plan for the driver who was fastest in qualifying, and I think it's all eyes ahead to Alton Park now for car 18. Disappointingly, we're on the final lap. It's one of those races you don't want to end, but Rocco Coronel is coming out of the final corner now. He's heading to the checkered flag. It's going to be a 5th win in a row, and he completes the Silverstone hat-trick. It's 3 wins from 3 at Silverstone for Rocco Coronel and R Racing, and it's an R Racing 1-2 as well, with Alfie Slater second and Joseph Smith in third. 4th will be George Proudfoot-Nalder. I'm not even going to attempt to guess what's going on behind him, because that's where all of the action has been taking place. It's Lindblom 5th, Cuthbert 6th, Green 7th from the back, ahead of Livesey, Lloyd and Clark. That's the top 10. Oh, and that's that is Torin Byrne trying to find the nearest exit from the Silverstone circuit, I suspect. Pulls the car in behind the barriers, and I would not be surprised if Torin simply gets out of the car and catches the first train home. It's been a very disappointing weekend for Torin Byrne. In the end, 14th place, the only reward for his efforts. And that's not the kind of result that he really should have been getting this weekend. Rocco Coronel, well, who can argue with that? That is a perfect weekend, really. And led every lap of that race too, which is a rare thing in Ginetta Juniors, especially around a track like Silverstone. But Rocco Coronel's just been unbeatable, quite literally unbeatable, and I wonder whether he can carry that on into Alton Park. This was Torin Byrne well, this was when the bonnet finally parted company with the car. You'd think that that would then solve the problem, but then Torin turned into the next corner and actually went almost off the road. So I don't know whether maybe it was leaking some fluid. I did see some smoke coming from the back of the car as it pulled over to the side of the road after the flag. So I wonder whether maybe there was a little bit of radiator fluid coming out after the various bits of contact that car had. Whew, well, a fitting end to the weekend here at Silverstone, the 501st Ginetta Junior Championship race, another one that we won't forget in a hurry. And Rocco Coronel certainly won't forget this weekend. Of all the tracks to get a hat-trick of victories, Silverstone, I'm sure, is the one that he's really happy he did it at. It's also been a good race for Alfie Slater, who came home second, but also the junior class winner. It doesn't really matter for the points, though. You score points based on your overall finishing position, so second is the thing he'll be most excited about, I suspect. But it is Rocco Coronel who will be celebrating this evening with his dad, who I would imagine is here cheering him on. Rocco Coronel, the race winner by 3/4 of a second, a very well-controlled race again. That's the line I keep using about Rocco Coronel, but it's absolutely fitting. Alfie Slater second, third Joseph Smith, fourth George Proudfoot-Nalder, and Scott Lindblom completes the top 5. Max Cuthbert, Fred Green, Felix Livesey, Freddie Lloyd and Jarrett Clark were next. Particularly impressive drive from Green, actually, from the back to finish in 7th place. 11th was Ethan Lennon ahead of Harry Bartle. Ralston Zarin was in the wars, but ended up 13th. Mind you, in the wars, doesn't even begin to cover the weekend Torin Byrne has had. 14th place at the finish in race 3 ahead of Felipe Reich. Then it's Henry Cameron, Emilio Del Grosso, Noah Young, Ethan Carney and Josh Henry to complete the top 20. 21st was Matthew Chihuahua. And 22nd position for Katrina E. Josh Watts was 23rd with a damaged car after that incident at the Loop, which took out of the race, I'm afraid, the Elite Motorsport pairing of Colin Cronin and Reevy Lake. Well, sensational stuff from the juniors. They will, as I said, be back at Alton Park for their next round of the championship. Let's take a look back, though, at the highlights from race number 3. The third and final Ginetta Junior Championship race from the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit was breathless, I think is the word I'd use to describe it. Maybe not so much, though, for Rocco Coronel, who made a pretty perfect start from pole position, led into turn 1, and proceeded to lead the entire 7-lap race. It was a pretty calm run for him. Behind is where all of the action was. This was the schmozzle that happened at the Loop on the first lap. 4 into 1 didn't go. Cronin was tapped into a spin. Reevy Lake tangled with Josh Watts. They all came together, and that led to a couple of laps behind the safety car as the track was cleared. Torin Byrne was again in the wars, tangling with a car at club. That loosened the front bodywork. A few more touches later on in the race would do further damage. George Proudfoot-Nalder had been in 3rd position until a moment on the restart with Ethan Carney. He charged his way back through. They're getting ahead of Carney there at Beckett's just after a safety car restart, and eventually finishing an impressive 4th place. This, though, triggered a sensational battle, which at one point had as many as 12 cars engaging in all-out warfare on the circuit. In the end, it all got a little bit too much for Lloyd, who ran wide at the Loop. Then, Emilio Del Grosso was tapped into a spin by Ralston Zarin, who rejoined the circuit from that, whilst Torin Byrne's front bodywork finally parted company with the 18 car on the final lap. It's a hat-trick of Silverstone wins, though, for Rocco Coronel, who extends his championship lead with a 5th victory of the year.